It looks like things are going from bad to even worse for former WWE Chairman Vince McMahon, as a former writer claims that he was fired from the company in 2016 after trying to change a racially insensitive segment on Martin Luther King Day. That sentence did just come out of my mouth. I'm going to tell you everything you need to know about this. We have video from the writer, their testimony, what they have to say about this, and so much more. Be sure to smash that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Now, before we watch the testimony, I do want to say that WWE is a company that has a history of not being the most racially sensitive or inclusive business or company out there. You know, they've been racist segments, racist promos, a lot of things, and a lot of it has come, I think, from the top, and a culture that has permeated from the top. And there's one person who has been at the top for as long as WWE has really been around and relevant, and that is Vince McMahon. So that's a little bit of background, but here is the former WWE writer. I'm just pulling it up right now. Here is what they had to say. This is Michael Leonardi.
So, getting to my point in the story, so I was fired over a very particular segment, which, quite frankly, still rubs me the wrong way, and I think about it all the time, and I always think about what I could have done better, if anything, to have not gotten fired. So, essentially, I was given a segment, and this had already gone through a couple of rewrites. And this was one of the days where there was a lot of late-minute rewrites. There was a lot of backup with shooting segments. We had another really big segment that was being shot at the time with New Day, and they were doing like a eulogy for their trombone that got destroyed or something. My segment, though, was involving 4 talent, 3 African Americans. It was R-Truth, Titus O'Neil, and Mark Henry, and Neville, a Caucasian guy. So this happened to be the Martin Luther King edition of Monday Night Raw. It took place in Columbus, Ohio, and it was on a Monday, whatever it was, like January 16th or something like that. I forget the date. Anyway, when I finally got the new script and brought it in, we did not have a lot of time to shoot it. And essentially, the script called for Neville to speak up and tell everyone else that, he's got a dream too, and that dream is to win the Royal Rumble. And I remember Neville coming up to me after he read it, and he was like, Mike, man, I can't say this. Like, this is not... Like, and for anyone that is trying to understand this, trying to compare and compare almost like these things are comparable in some face. He was a good guy, a wrestler who wants to one day win the Royal Rumble, to one of the most iconic, speeches in American history about civil rights and how important that was. To try to like play on that was dumb. It was poor writing, and I'll tell you why. Number one, it doesn't make Neville look like a face. That would be something that a heel would say, right? That would be something that a bad guy would say in that way to undermine the importance of that speech.
Just stepping in real quick. Even if a heel said it, that would be an insane thing to say. That would be so wild.
At the end of the day, right? So not only did Neville was not comfortable saying it, the other 3 guys in the room, Titus and R-Truth and Mark Henry, were like, yeah, this is effing terrible. And so we did not have time to go back and get rewrites. And I was not comfortable at all, nor did I, even think this was an option, quite frankly, to try and get them to do it as is. The talent didn't want to shoot it that way. So what do? So we worked together and we tried to find a way that we could pull this off and it not come off racially insensitive, or to basically mock to some degree one of the most prolific speeches of all time by a guy who's supposed to be a good guy too. Like, there was no way that was going to be pulled off. So we ended up having R-Truth say it. Who R-Truth is a Hall of Famer. He is so incredible about delivering things. And so we had R-Truth say it for Neville, in a way that made it fun and warm and not insensitive in any way, or not basically, making light of just on the day of MLK. It's like, so so we shot it that way. We shot it that way. We were running out of time, and everybody liked it. My boss, Dave Kapoor, was in the room, and he approved it. And afterwards, Dave said to me, "Hey, Mike, why don't you just go down to Gorilla and tell Vince, what we did here? Just give him a heads up." I said, "Okay." So I go down to Gorilla, and Vince is sitting in Gorilla where he always used to sit when he's got his headphones on. And I said, "Hey, Vince, just want to give you a heads up. We shot this thing. The talent had a little bit of a issue with how this was written. And so we had R-Truth say the line as well. We think it felt good. We're happy with it. I know it's my responsibility, but just wanted to let you know." And I remember, and I'll never forget this, he's staring at the screen. He takes off his headphones, and he turns to me and he said, "So you didn't give me what I wanted." And my eyes got big, and I'm like, and I said, "Yes, sir, I know, I understand." I explained to him again what we did, the circumstances around it, the limitations that we had. I took full responsibility for it. And then he just chewed me the fuck out, pardon my French. Chewed me out. And segment that was racially insensitive, that just was poor, that would just put us potentially in a bad light over nothing. And it's, I have, here's what I want to say. I'm not the only one. Like, there are thousands of stories about Vince, and not, in light of what's going on now, which is incredibly terrible, awful, ugly crap, that has risen to a place of legal ramifications for him and other things. There are thousands of stories of him doing things that are just, people not illegal, but just mean or unethical or like whatever that is, right? That's nothing to sue someone over in that sense. But the one thing I want to say is I have replayed that moment thousands of times in my head, and I've asked myself, could I have done something to have not gotten fired? And the only thing that I could have potentially have done, although quite honestly, I would have never even known that. And my boss didn't say that. Like, he didn't bring this up as an idea. Nobody else did. Was I could have gone to Neville and said, "Hey man, like if I even knew this, I'm like, listen, we got to give this is what Vince wants, right? This is what's on paper. We have to shoot this. However, why don't we shoot it as Vince told us? And then why don't we shoot an alternative with the way that myself and you and the rest of the talent thought was the best version, that the segment comes off funny and fun and warm-hearted and puts everyone over at the end of the day and doesn't put the company in bad light." That would have been, I can tell you, that would have been the best outcome. But when you have a talent that is like, I'm not saying this, I'm not comfortable saying this, and you have three black guys on a racially insensitive thing, which they're like, this is terrible, like we can't put this out. And you have no time to go back and get rewrites or get approvals or anything else like that. You got to make calls on the fly sometimes. And what did we do? We collaborated. We all put our heads together, my boss included. And, we put together what we thought was the best possible thing.
Okay, so that was former WWE writer Michael Leonardi. If you guys want to watch the full video, he has about like half an hour of his testimony and his perspective up on his LinkedIn page. I will link his page in the description, but that was just a bit of the background of what happened here. Obviously, a very racially insensitive thing for WWE to write, and then, Vince McMahon to seemingly double down on and become angry about. I will say this. the part here that is, especially disgusting is the fact that, Vince McMahon, we have known this. He is someone who has been reportedly very power hungry. He's someone, he retired and he came back. He forced his way back into his own company. So that shows you, the type of guy that Vince McMahon is when it comes to like consolidating and keeping power. But what is the most disturbing out of this is that Vince McMahon didn't even register, seemingly, from what Michael had said in that segment. It didn't even register to him that this was a segment that should not air. Having a white guy go out there as a face and say, I have a dream on MLK Day to 3 black people? Like, it either shows you that Vince McMahon is out of touch or he doesn't care and he's ignorant. Like, there's only really 2 possibilities. He cared more about chewing out the writer, Michael Leonardi, he cared more about chewing him out than he did, rewriting this bad segment. Like, you can call it racist, you can call it insensitive. It was bad. It should not. And I don't think it aired. I hope it didn't. I don't think it aired at all because they didn't shoot that, obviously. But like, oh my God, if they had done that, like this, when John Moxley was on Jericho's podcast, and he said that WWE once tried to have him go out there and do a segment that was, so bad that they would lose sponsors, that, people would get fired. It makes that story sound even more true when you hear things like this. And it's not surprising. This is the same company, and I don't believe Vince was involved in this, but remember, things come down from the top. The culture comes down from the top. This is the same company that once depicted a Muslim as a terrorist. This is the same company that, had or tried to pitch Mansoor to be behind the 9/11 attacks. They had the Mexicals come out on lawnmowers. WWE is not the bastion of inclusivity and racial sensitivity. So none of this is surprising. It shouldn't be surprising. I highly recommend you guys go check out Michael's full perspective on his LinkedIn page, but this makes the allegations, everything that's happened over the past 2 years when it comes to McMahon and WWE, this just adds to it and somehow makes it worse. And I think the longer we go here, the more stories like this we are going to hear. There are going to be former talent who come out and talk about being bullied by Vince McMahon, being bullied by people backstage, being bullied by the culture that was in WWE for as long as Vince was around. This is not going away. And TKO can ignore it as much as they want, but at a certain point, you have to come to terms with the fact that this is a company that has a history of abuse, bullying, and even worse things that are unspeakable. So, obviously, we will stick with this as long as there are developments. There will definitely be more developments on the lawsuit as things go on. But until next time, be sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit that notification bell.